I wanted to get your take on this. It was a chart
on your Twitter page.
Well, the chart, yeah, it's a mess. There's a chart that I shared on Saturday that here. This is a chart that shows essentially how much money we have in the bank. Have you seen this floating around?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so in 2021, this is cash money in the bank. Americans, $2.1 trillion in cash in the bank. This is the height of the COOF checks, the height of the lockdowns, everything like that. It was the highest amount of cash Americans had saved up in a long time, at least even since back to 2020. You could see saving of the 2.1 trillion. In 2024, they have burned through all $2.1 trillion in cash and remain at a $72 billion cash deficit.
Is there a source for this? I took statistics, so the anal retentive in me.
This is from the Kobayashi letter. These people are generally pretty reliable. It says $2.1 trillion of excess savings have been wiped out in the U.S. since 2021. From March 2020 until August 2021, $2.1 trillion in excess savings were built up after $4 trillion in stimulus. That's, the COOF checks.
Yeah.
Since then, U.S. households have depleted these savings on a pace of $70 billion per month, down to a $72 billion deficit in March 2024. Now, you might think, well, they're spending this money. We can find more sources to verify this, but let's, for the sake of argument, say it's true. People might be saying, oh, they got all the stimulus checks, so they're paying off their debt. Wrong.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, at the exact same time, U.S. credit card debt has risen by $330 billion to an all-time record of $1.1 trillion. Meanwhile, savings rates in the United States declined from 3.5% in February to 3.2% in March, the lowest since November 2022. Savings are now considered a luxury.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you go to the store and you try to buy pickles, you'll understand why.
Yeah, or a $21 Big Mac meal from McDonald's,
yeah,
or whatever the case may be. Like,
do you remember when a dollar store meant that things cost $1?
Yeah,
good luck finding one of those now.
Well, they exist, but it's not $1.
Yeah.
You know what I see?
People that are making 70, 80K a year, they're skipping meals or eating ramen or something like that. A cup of noodles.
Yeah, it has to be, it's. I'm not sure how else to. I mean, you could make this argument too, right? Just to put on the positive side of things. In the same in 2 year span, Americans put that much money in the bank. So potentially they could put it back in the bank. But I mean,
well, no, because they pissed it away because they were draining those funds slowly over time in order to buy basic necessities. Like, back in like the 80s, my parents fell prey to this actually. People were taking out debt on credit cards to buy luxury items or things that they wanted to upgrade, like a car, a dishwasher, whatever. But that was because they were optimistic about the economy. Now they're not doing it because they're optimistic. They're doing it to buy groceries. They're not using it on luxury items or to upgrade their life. They're using it just to maintain the level of living that they were already at. And then those are the fortunate ones took out a side hustle. But then Biden's trying to go after the gig economy.
Right, which is why they delayed that $600, reporting thing.
Yeah.
They continue and say the average American now has $6,500 in credit card debt. Meanwhile, the median American family has less than $8,000 in the savings. We are witnessing a credit card debt crisis. With interest rates at 25% plus.
I am very glad that I have no debt.
Yeah, I try to be very, very, very careful about credit cards.
I'll never have one in my life. I don't care about building credit. They can suck my ass.
Well, you never need it if you just pay for shit. It's.
I'd rather live in a tent than take out debt at this point because it's just such a grift.
Well, the concern here.
Reject usury, everyone.
Yeah, even Jesus rejected. He threw out the money changers.
Yeah, he was throwing their tables over and whipping them with a cat of nine tails and crazy shit like that. Let's be more Christian, everyone, and reject debt and usury.
Yeah, be more Christian. Stop taking out.
Yeah, lend to one another without interest or something like that.
Yeah, Patrick Bet David talked about this too. He said, I think he said here.
So you got to look at these numbers below.
By the way, Patrick Bet David is got all of his money from a multi-level marketing company, and he has $400 million in the bank. So I'm not exactly worried about what he has to say about it.
I wish I had that much in the bank.
Well, I'm sure Patrick Bet David is looking at it. I'm going to buy a bunch of poor, unfortunate people's shit. Like that's how the Rockefellers and all these people got huge during the Depression. I'll say this to people: if you're into collector's items, you want to get collectibles. Wait, people are going to be selling their collectibles. People are going to be selling their all sorts of stuff in these next coming years, and Trump's going to inherit a financial disaster. I think.
Agreed.
And they're going to blame him the whole flipping time. That's
why Biden is taking one last lap around the idea of student loan debt forgiveness as a ticking time bomb. He knows if he probably doesn't get it through, then he can just blame the right wingers and the evil SCOTUS and stuff for blocking him. If he does get it through, though, it's going to massively inflate the currency.
Yep.
Because his plan is like what, $2+ trillion. Yeah, that's not going to cause any inflation at all.
Right, just like all that money we printed for COOF relief funds didn't either.
Exactly.
And like the wild part about all this is, I try to tell people that, like, I was thinking about adding like an outbuilding on my property. I've held off on that. After seeing some of these numbers, it's like it's going to get bad. So just spend your money wisely. I'm not saying like freak out or anything, but I'm saying,
be frugal and prudent.
Yes, that's always good advice. But during Trump is going to be rough.
Yeah,
that's
why I've massively expanded the garden, because I'm looking at the food prices. I'm like, well, if I want to eat pickles, I should probably make them myself.
Well, I mean, the funny thing about gardening now is for a long time, really only classified as a hobby unless you were really, really good at it. And you had property and you ignored things like the overhead costs and property taxes and things like that. But now, if you're strategically gardening for things like you said, like pickles, which are very expensive, oddly, eggs, which we saw go out of control for an entire summer. Was that a summer or winter?
It's been years.
Yeah, I mean, the butt gold rush was real.
I can remember when it was, like 20 cents an egg or something like that. It was a cheap source of protein.
Yeah, exactly. And now you could argue that there's a better argument for gardening. There's a better argument for having a couple chickens in a coop. I'm not saying that like the apocalypse is coming. I'm not that kind of guy.
But hard times are coming. Harder,
Yeah.
My grandfather actually talked about that to me. He was a child of the Depression. And Vermont was actually partially spared from the Great Depression because people already were growing a lot of their own food, raising a lot of their own animals. And so when rationing came or when shortages came, they said, oh, I don't notice the difference. They didn't have electricity to begin with most of the time.
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess obviously that's true. If you're ready, if you're already living cheap, then this stuff doesn't affect you nearly as much. Yeah. But I mean, this is stuff that I try to tell people, a reckoning is coming for all this money that we've printed, all this money we've sent to Ukraine and Israel. You can't just keep printing money. It's not how this works.
Yeah, it's hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
People don't even realize it because it comes in smaller batches, right? So it's 15 billion here, 20 billion there, and they're like, oh, that's not too bad. Well, yeah, but now count it all up. Right. My advice to people is next time you cook bacon, save the drippings.
Oh yeah, it's wildly.
Yeah, I've got some right here.
Yeah,
still smells like bacon.
Well, they're extremely useful in a wide variety of ways, not just for, bacon fat. Save your stuff, canned stuff.
Exactly.
Now just so that if things get expensive, you don't have to struggle.